Hi there, I'm Michelle Singh, and I want to welcome you to the Restful Teacher Challenge. Now, I created this challenge because I have been on the other side of burnout. I have been on the other side of dread. I have been on the other side of drained, okay? And I know what it feels like to be completely overwhelmed and stressed. I know that feeling of being pulled in thousands of different directions. And I know what it feels like when everything is all too much and my brain and physical body and spiritual being is at capacity. So I hope that you're able to gain practical insights from our guest speakers and fellow educators and professionals who will be sharing with you on this challenge. So thank you for joining the challenge, and let's meet our special guest speaker for today. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Restful Teacher Challenge. We have our special guest today, Mr. Jonathan Santos Silva. And I'm excited to have Jonathan on here. He's going to share some incredible things with you about who he is and the wonderful work he does personally and professionally, as well as talk to you about cultivating joy through rest. So Jonathan, take it away. Let us know who you are and the important work that you do personally and professionally.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thanks, Michelle, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you and to talk to all your people about rest and about joy and about how we make that a part of our work, our sustainable work as educators and leaders. As you said, my name is Jonathan Santos Silva. I'm the founder of the Liber Institute, which is an organization which works to embolden and equip Indigenous educators to transform the schools that they work in, right? These are folks who are community embedded, who care, who have been there and will be there. And our work is all about identifying who those folks are, helping to understand their visions, and then working to bring them to life. How do we build the schools of our dreams? How do we ensure that all kids have access to a future that is full with choice, that is in alignment with who they are as individuals, but also who they are as a people. So that's what I do by day. I also, I'm a podcaster. So I have hosted the Changing Course, which was, a 2-year odyssey with Teach for America, where we kind of went around the country talking to folks that were doing innovative and powerful things. We got some awards for that. And I'm the chairman of the board of ed, which is my own little pet project. And so it's something I love to do. Outside of that, I'm a husband and a father. I just recently celebrated our 14th wedding anniversary. We have 4 kids. And they are super busy. And so that's part of my rest and joy is just keeping up with them, trying to stay young so that I can be engaged with them. And if I'm not in work, if I'm not with one of those people that I just mentioned, then I'm either walking my dog. No, she's a 13-year-old, so she's getting up there. Her hips ain't what they used to be, but she still loves to walk with me. Or practicing or teaching self-defense. I'm big into the martial arts. It's a big part of my life for a long time. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, thank you for sharing. Happy anniversary to you and your wife and just your family. What, 14 years? 14 years?
14 years of marriage. She's been through, she was on the reservation with me when I first started teaching, and been on that journey with me to starting my own thing, and trying to impact the world as an entrepreneur, as a social entrepreneur. So yeah, she's the rock. She's the one who, she also home educates our kids. So she's a classically trained special educator. I was a TFA teacher, so I kind of came to the work, alternative route. But I'm really fortunate to have someone like that who shares my vision for education, believes that, we are, uniquely positioned as 2 educators to be able to do that and provide that to our kids. And so what she does with my kids, really honestly, with our kids inspires me in my work, because I want every family to feel like they have a high quality option for their kids. For us, it just happens to be that we do it ourselves. But even if you're going to your local community school, or it's a private school, or it's whatever, how are you ensuring that what your kids are getting is preparing them for the life that they dream of?
Oh, I love that. Chills, alignment, everything that you just said, the high quality education the kids deserve to have to live the life of their dreams. I love that. And you're doing it with your own kids, but you're bringing your expertise and your experience as you do work with the communities that you work, that you serve. So kudos to you for your incredible work. More than important because of who you serve, the underserved communities, the historically excluded groups that you prioritize in your work. So much respect, because I just came from Jamaica. Much respect to you for that. So, and your dog, I did have to throw this out. So 14 years marriage and 14-year-old dog.
Yeah, she's an OG. She's the one. I tell the kids she was here before all y'all,
Goodness. So yeah, that female or male?
Female.
So
she is like she's like she's an awesome dog. Her temperament, she's so calm. She's great with the kids. If they're a little rough and they roll over her by accident, she's chill, So, I mean, her mortality, before me, as I think, she's 13, 14 years old, is not, you know, many 20-year-old dogs out
Yeah,
there. So
yeah,
I know
yeah.
it's short, but man, it's been a blessing to
It,
have her through the journey.
oh my gosh, I know the feeling. I know the feeling. I had so my 15-year-old 7 months old dog, we just had to put him to sleep last week, but he spent 15 wonderful years with our family, and he was so loved by everybody in our huge family. And
Yep.
so it's painful, but we knew it was time. And you'll know. I don't know how else to put it, but that you'll know, like they'll
Mhm.
let you know when it's time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
having a companion that for that length of time is incredible, because they are so loyal, they are so loving, and I actually use my dogs as a form of rest.
Mhm.
When I take them outside in the mornings as they're doing their business, I use that time to do my stretching and take my deep breaths. I go outside
Yes.
and I take breaks with them throughout the day, little short breaks, let them outside in the nature, take them on walks. So you can, if you have pets, if you have dogs and they're your companions, and just you can use them and integrate it in the way that you rest, but also just their energy, the love that
Oh,
they
yeah, no
share.
doubt.
Like sometimes, like I'm having a bad day, you see mine behind me, rubbing
Mhm.
on him helps me to feel better.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's real. I mean, it's similar for me. So we had two dogs for a while, and we had to put Brewski down last year. So he was about a year younger than Nala. But walking there, I mean, I can't even tell you the miles that I put on the tires,
Mm.
walking with them. And same for me, like starting my day with Nala, walking. We live on a very quiet, wooded street. It's kind of rural here in Western Rhode Island, for the Northeast. And so in the trees, in nature, walking, breathing. Sometimes I'm doing, mental reps around, like just like calming myself, paying attention to breathing, feeling the ground under my feet. Other times I have my phone, I have my Bible app. So I'm reading, something spiritual, or sometimes I'm standing there while she's doing whatever, and I'm doing my Duolingo, which is, one of my ways to bring joy and have fun and learn. So like, yeah, like I having had her all this time, she's definitely changed. I wasn't a get up in the morning and walk person, 15 years ago, but that's something that I feel like it's a life practice now. So my dogs taught me an element of, my rest repertoire, that daily walk out in the nature that is just giving me fresh air, sunlight, getting that sunlight every day. You know what I'm saying? Like even if it's not like treacherously downpouring, like if it's a drizzle, if it's a light snow, we're out. We're out. Like that's the commitment. So yeah, it's definitely she's taught me her and her brother, they taught me a lot about just like, having that as part of my routine.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they have to go out. They got to use a bathroom. They got to go outside. So you can build that consistency where you got to take them out. That can become part of your rest routine that you do every day. Just bake that into your schedule as you're taking care of them. Just kind of kill two birds with one stone. So that's
Totally.
definitely one way to do it. All right. So you talked about, your wife being a special educator, and of course you're an educator. What what would you share with teachers, because you know the teacher life, teachers,
Mhm.
and especially with you coming through TFA and being a new teacher in the field without formal training, when teachers are feeling overwhelmed and burnt out, and they just feel like they don't have enough time in the day to rest, because resting may sound like sleeping, or resting may sound like going to the gym for an hour, and we are learning about the different ways we can rest, the 7 different types of rest. What advice would you give teachers who are new to this, so that they can feel empowered to embrace it?
Hmm. I would just start by saying that um, if you are anything like me as a teacher, one of the things that you love about the role is having your classroom. It's having this idea that within the realms of within that realm, within those four walls, you get to create an environment for yourself and for your students where learning is happening, where you can build a community. And so that's beautiful. And at the same time, when taken too far, it can start to become this mindset where you forget that even as you are building your little container, you're part of something bigger, right? It's very easy to get on that track where you think you're in it alone, right? You're grading papers in your classroom till late, or you're in there early planning, and nobody really gets me. No one's doing what I'm doing, But the reality is that, like, if you're lucky, you do have people around you, whether it's your partner, your wife, or your spouse, your husband, like with me, or your next door neighbor, in your classroom. You have people around you who care about you, who share maybe your vision and mission, And so that first part is like knowing that you're not alone, right? Like being able to talk to those around you, especially if you have veteran educators around you for
Mhm.
the tips and tricks. Now, I also know that, not all the veteran teachers, some of them may be a little bit weary. They've been in the game. So like take it with a grain of salt, but find the ones that you gravitate towards who do still have a passion, who still bring joy to it. How are you doing that? You know, like what do you do? What is your self-care regimen? I think like just
Mhm.
being committed to it from right at the beginning, knowing that like that there's so many factors, not the least of which are your own mindsets, what that will try to get you to think that you're in it alone. Just keep, that's the first thing is remember, you're not actually alone. Even if you have to get onto social media, join a Facebook group. I mean, Facebook is beautiful for that, that you can find a group for anything,
Yeah.
whether it's probably, I mean, I haven't done a search, so I'm making it, but it could be science teachers, it could be Black women teachers, it could be career changer teachers. You can probably find a Facebook group, and that's your sacred affinity community,
Yeah.
right? Like where you can go on the wall in your safe group and just be like, yo, I had a really rough day. Anyone
Yeah.
have tips for this? Or anyone have strategies for that? Anyone ever gone through this? So I think that's the first piece. The second thing is that uh, I think it's important to, I get the idea of having boundaries,
Yep.
but and having healthy boundaries and saying that like if it's X o'clock and I'm not done, I'm gonna finish anyway, so I can get a good night's sleep, right? Or if it's this time, I need to put this stuff away because I need to eat. And
Yep.
especially if you have certain health things, like making sure that you're watching your sugars, you're doing this, you're doing that, whatever those may be. So I get the idea of boundaries, and I would find harmony between those boundaries, but also knowing that like who you are as a teacher is not separate and devoid from who you are as a person. So if there are practices that have benefited you in other parts of your life, how do you find ways to bring those in? So whether that is things that you did in undergrad if you're a new teacher, or things that you did in your other career if you're a career changer, or things that you do on the weekends, right? Like you can't just leave class. But like I love to be creative and think like if there are things that I love to do, right? Like maybe you love to read a book at the beach and hear the ocean sounds and all that stuff, and that's your summer thing. I go to the beach every week, whatever. Okay, you can't do that in the middle of the school year, but you could get a pretty functional sound machine for cheap
Mhm.
these days. Bring your book on your prep. Start your prep with 5 to 15 minutes or whatever of just reading. Then you get your little Zen on, turn
Right.
that on, and okay, now you can grade. But why not take a little time for you, right? Maybe it's you love having incense or candles in your at home. Okay, you probably can't have a lit thing at school fire, but you can get a candle warmer, or you can get a air effect type of thing where you plug it in. Bring that aromatherapeutic aspect if that's the thing you love. I think it's just like I said, like having good boundaries is key, but also knowing that like who you are as a human doesn't stop because you clocked in. So if there are things that bring you joy or rest, do that. I've had, and I don't know why I haven't seen it in more men's classroom.
Mhm.
Maybe it's because of antiquated notions about like the masculine, presentation. But I have been blown away being in the classroom of a lot of women, how they create the little desk area to be their little refuge. Like,
Yeah.
why can't all teachers do that, right? Like, have pictures of either the people or the places that bring you joy.
Yeah.
Have little artifacts. I have here. I have an office. I'm not obviously in the school, but this little apple bell. My mom. This came from my great grandmother, and she
Wow.
right. I
Um,
had this little bell. She gave it to me because I became the teacher. And so I have that there. I think about my mother. I think about my ancestors, the
I
women, the
love
powerful women.
that.
So like, you know what I mean? Like make your little
Create your
space
safe
what it needs to
space.
be. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, like you can tell, I mean, I was fortunate that when I taught, I had a relationship with my students where they didn't violate my personal space. Like, so like, build that relationship with your kids. I'm not saying bring stuff that you would be afraid of a little kid being like, oh, and they break it, but put things there that you love. Maybe it's
Yes.
cheaper things, but that give you that feel like this is my sacred space.
Yeah.
Like I just think those are some of the things that I would think about. And then just like we were talking about with the dogs, figuring out ways to incorporate physical movement in your day. I remember like I'll have like a week off, and then I go back to school and my feet hurt me because I was just standing there at the board and I was on and I'm getting everybody going. Or my legs are tight at the end of the day because I've been standing. How do you incorporate some movement?
Mhm.
Maybe it's a couple of squats every hour. Maybe it's, I don't know, some jumping jacks before the prep hour is over. But like maybe it's a lap around the track if you can get outside, or around the hallways if it's
Around
a
the
really
hallway. I
beautiful
was
day.
gonna say I used to do that. Walk through the hallway.
Yep.
Yes.
I mean, it's a really beautiful way to make sure that your kids see you outside. I mean, because so there are like, like the hidden curriculum, right? Like getting out there and having your kids seeing you outside the classroom, letting them know that you notice them. Walking, hey, Michelle, how you doing? You can have your coffee with you, like, hey, Michelle, how's it going? Oh, how was third hour? Oh, really? That sounds awesome. I would love to hear more about it later. I know you're in a rush, but you know what I mean? Like that type of thing. It's not just the physical, it could also be the social. Because I do get, for some folks, when you're teaching, even though it is a social job, it's not you're not just visiting.
Yeah.
There's a purpose. So okay, if that doesn't feel rejuvenating for you, then get out, visit, say hello to some of the other teachers, some of the other folks that share the building with you. But I just think those are some of the things that I
Yeah.
would say to teachers, and especially, if you have if they're listening to this and it's summertime, or they're listening to this and it's right before back to school on Monday, whatever it may be, take some of your time and be thoughtful and planful when it comes to your rest. If
Yes.
you think that you're going to rest just in the natural flow of the day, I have news for you. There's always going to be something important. There's always going to be something on fire, so to speak. So have a plan for it. Just make a plan for it. I'm going to take that, like I said, that first 5 to 10 or 15 minutes of my prep, and I'm going to read, and I'm going to turn on my waves so I can pretend I'm at the beach, or I'm going to take my lap,
Hmm.
or I'm going to do whatever it may. I'm going to freshen up my cup of coffee. Like, put a plan in place. You wouldn't go to school without a plan or without a curriculum, without a map.
Yes.
So how would you think you can tend to yourself without a plan?
It's true. You got to plan. You got to schedule it, because a theme that's come up in a lot of our conversations during the challenge is rest is not natural. It's not something that we embrace naturally. It's a challenge. We resist it. So we have to be intentional about putting it in our day so that we can actually do it. And
Yeah.
go ahead, Jonathan.
No, no, I was going to just say, I might even reframe that and say, rest is natural, but it is have been socially engineered out of us, and it's a reclamation project.
Yeah,
And
that's
the
true.
reality is that, so because if you think about it, as for those of us that are descendants, of the African diaspora, to be resting was to be loitering, was to be vagrant, was to be shiftless, was to be lazy. Our ancestors that
Mm.
may have been enslaved peoples, and so whether it was from that or to like sharecropping or anything that came after that, like even like the way we police black bodies in this country historically, like to not be busy was almost to be a
Mm-hmm.
crime. And so your mind, your brain has evolved socially to like ward you away from rest.
So
So
true.
it's a reclamation project, and you have to know in advance that your brain is going to have all kinds of mind trash around rest, not because it hates you and wants you to be exhausted, but because historically it was dangerous. You know what I mean? Like your parents have
Wow.
probably ingrained you,
Wow.
think about like the old and living color sketch, talking about wasn't it about Jamaicans, or was it about
Oh,
Caribbeans in
tree
general?
jobs?
Jobs,
Jamaican people. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like that's
Yes.
culturally ingrained in us for our
And it,
survival, that
yes,
you have
you're
to be
right.
working. So, you know, to go back and claim rest, we have to go back over multi generations of trauma
Mm.
to grab it, right? You know what I'm saying? I would say if you're a teacher or educator and you don't feel natural resting, there's nothing wrong with you. You are the product of this social engineering, right? But now that we know that, it's like, okay, so how do I? So then even more so, the impetus is on us to have a plan, because we got to know that my mind trash is gonna be like, look at you, lazy. You can't be sitting
Hmm.
here. You gotta do this. And we're saying, no,
Yes.
no, I'm not being lazy. My rest is productive, because
Yes.
my rest gives me the ability to come back to this work with clear sight, with energy, with vision, with strength. If I don't do that, I'm going to actually be less productive.
Right. 100 million%. Oh, yes, yes. I mean, you broke it down totally. And you're absolutely right. Being Jamaican, all you do is work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like having multiple jobs is just culturally a thing. But hard work isn't the answer. Where's the ease in the work? Where's
Right.
the ease in the life that you're supposed to live? I mean, we know that we've had family members who, the moment they retire, they don't make it, right?
No,
They work their entire life, literally. And the moment that they get that break,
they die.
they die,
You know?
unfortunately.
And the thing is, as a person of faith, I don't know what day God's going to call me. But I can't. So therefore, I cannot plan for this future life of ease, this future life of rest, this future life of joy, deferring, because I don't know if I'm going to make it.
Yes.
So the more so, it's incumbent upon us to make elbow room now for rest and joy and ease today. That doesn't mean quit your job, you know what I mean, lose the house,
Right.
but how do you make room for daily rest? We do this activity. So I'm big into like design thinking, human-centered design. And I do this activity with folks when I'm teaching them about conducting empathy interviews, right? So not to go too far afield, but for those who don't know, an empathy interview is a powerful tool to get to better understand the people you serve. So if you ever wanted to do empathy interviews as a teacher, you might want to empathy interview your students or their parents to get a sense of what does it look like when education is working for them? What does it look like when it's not? But in order to teach people to do this, I will pair them up and get them to interview a partner with a goal of planning the ideal birthday party, the ideal birthday celebration, right? And so you and I would take turns. I'm interviewing you, you interviewing me. Hey, at the end, I usually flip the script, and before they actually go to planning, now that they've gathered all this insight about, like, tell me about a birthday when you felt really special, or tell me about a year when someone really got it right, what was happening, whatever. I get all this insight. I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to plan the birthday for Michelle, and then I go, actually, I don't want you to plan a birthday party for Michelle. What I want you to do is make some recommendations for daily practices that would allow her to experience some of the magic she was sharing with you every day. Right? So in that same way, I would say to the teachers, to the educators who are listening, start off by thinking about, when do you feel most at rest? When do you feel joyful? When do you feel at ease? And then see if you can't distill the wisdom in those practices and come up with daily practices. Because, like, look, if I'm going, soon I'm going on a big cruise, with my family. My sister's getting her 25th anniversary vow renewal. It's going to be fun. But I don't want to wait a whole year after that for my next big rest and ease. So what is it about? What am I going to do during that trip that'll help me feel rejuvenated? And how do I borrow some of it each and every day?
Yes.
That's how you make it sustainable. And that's also how you lead in a way where you don't have resentment. Because the alternative is, if you only rest when you can totally, totally stop, then the things that you love about your work, you'll begin to hate. The things you love about your family, you'll begin to resent, right? And so how do you sprinkle in a little bit of that magic throughout your daily practice so that you feel more sustainable and you can, like, keep the batteries charged? Because we know, for the great educators that are out there listening, we're not going to educate these kids in one lesson. You got 180 days. So you need to be sustainable. You need to be able to be there as often as is possible, right? You need to take health days sometimes, but as often as possible, with as much of the battery charge as possible, so you can give these kids what they deserve, and that you can experience the fulfillment that you deserve.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, so many good, so many gems, so much good stuff. I mean, you went down a list of so many examples of the different forms of rest, from sensory rest all the way to physical rest. So the things that stood out the most is, think about when you feel or have felt the most joy, right? And then, where were you? What was happening? And then find ways to incorporate small things from that into your everyday life. So, like I said, your cruise, like for me, I'm always happiest in Jamaica. And so I actually have planted my grandfather planted a few trees as well. But we have, mango tree, I have Jamaican apple tree, soursop tree. And I do go in my yard and look at those trees. I do. And the birds are in the trees. And I love to hear the birds in the morning, right? I love the sound of the beach. You know what I listen to on the Calm app? Beach sounds.
Yeah.
How do you sprinkle, like you said, those things that allowed you to feel that feeling of joy and happiness? How are you able to bring those into your daily routine?
Right. Think about that. Every time you get to go in your backyard, you have a little piece of Jamaica. It's a much more sustainable practice than, you can't fly to Jamaica every week, but you can be out in that backyard every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, whether it's like thinking about those moments that brought you most joy, the people that make you feel surrounded by love, and getting you like one of them digital picture
Right.
frames.
Yeah.
And just letting the pictures roll through of your grandma, your grandpa, your best friend, whatever, the place, Jamaica, like, just have the pictures going through, and then you plug that in, and then it just reminds you, right? But just those little things that you can do to tend to yourself every day.
And even cooking, that's a form of rest. That's creative rest. Wherever you go that you love to go, have a Mexican night, have a Jamaican night, have an Italian night, have a Mediterranean night, whatever it is that you love, incorporate that into cooking, and cook with your family.
Yeah, cook with your family, cook for the people you love. Those are things. Also, I think we don't, again, back to the other part about, like, sometimes feeling like you're in it alone, planning intentionally for social time. You know what I'm saying? Like, to just get out and be with your homegirls or your homeboys, and be like, oh, just to be able to be that you that is not on and responsible for other people's children, right? To just, like, be able to let that go for a second. Again, don't wait for the family reunion, or don't wait for the once a year girls trip. Make it a little part of, your regular, even if that means you got to catch somebody on Zoom because you're not geographically close. Those are things that I just think that it's so much bigger than, and I get it, because I think of teachers as, educators as the most important work, but it's even bigger than being a great educator. It's about being a whole and healthy human. How do you be a good wife, or a good husband, or a good son, or a good daughter, or all the other roles you play? Because none of us is just a teacher. We're so many other things. So how do we be that fully? Is by tending to ourselves.
Yeah. Fulfilling yourself, building up your capacity so that you're able to serve everybody else around you. And that's why we have to think of rest as not it's a priority. It is a priority. We have to invest in our rest, right? And it's only it's going to benefit us, but it's only going to make us better as we serve those around us. So we have to make rest a non-negotiable.
Right. Look at, I mean, even when you think about it, whether you're a person, a spiritual person, you look at all the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, there's rest is in
Yeah.
scripture. Rest is in Buddhism. Rest is in, even if you're just a person, you don't believe in a creator or a higher power, look at nature. Nature suggests rest. Everything there is rest, whether it's the diurnal animals sleeping at night or the nocturnal animals sleeping in the day, the seasons, the earth and the trees rest. So like everything is screaming out to us that this, if we want to be fulfilled, like you said, experience fulfillment, if we want to be fulfilled, we need to rest, we need to rejuvenate. And it's a cycle because when we're rested and energized, we show up better in our work. And when we are good at our work, we experience success, which is a part about self-efficacy,
If you will us.
self-actualization, fulfillment, right? It's a cycle. So
Yeah.
it's actually like, I know it's going to be challenging if there are folks in here who have that type A personality or that perfectionism, is still something that they're working through, or like they have like you said, maybe cultural values around hard work. But the reality is that research shows that when we rest, we're actually more productive.
Yes.
A 30-hour week, we can be more productive than say that 60-hour week. Because maybe the first 60-hour week, because it's an off week, we're energized and there's passion around the project, we can do it. But the reality is when we stack the 60 after 60 after 60 after 60, you think about the eating habits that change, the sleeping habits that change, the attention to rest and joy that are lost, we actually become depleted. We do less than if we did, the research around the 4-day work week, having that extra day of rest, the third day on the weekend. People actually end up doing more, doing more. So you can't, as a teacher, abolish Friday school or whatever. But again, what are the ways you can work rest in to your daily routine, to your weekly routine, so that you're not just doing the 60-hour work week, getting to school 2 hours early, leaving it mad late, getting home, eating ramen noodles out of the cup because you didn't really plan for dinner.
Skipping lunch,
right.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you said about boundaries. Part of embracing rest is setting boundaries. So you have to set boundaries for when you're going to take your breaks, that you're going to commit to taking your breaks, which means that if you're supposed to leave school at a certain time and you're there grading papers and you're like, oh, I just need another hour, you have to tell yourself, I need to stop here. It's going to be there in the morning when I get there, and I can pick up there because this is a boundary that I need to honor. I need to leave.
Look, I mean, that hour grading from 8 to 9 or 9 to 10 or heaven forbid 11 to 12, whatever. Think about how more efficient that would be the next day with rest. Again, there's sometimes where things come up and it's like, oh, I just got to get this done. But as a regular practice, to be stretching yourself out like that is no good. I remember as an undergrad, I made a promise to myself that no more all-nighters. I was like, if I get to 2 o'clock and I'm not done, I'm going to bet on myself that I'll be better with sleep tomorrow than I will the incremental improvement that'll come from doing this more edits.
Yeah.
And I think that's especially true when you're talking about being an educator, where people are sending you the greatest, most valuable, precious thing they have is their kids. You'll be better with them rested and alert than you will if you grade one more freaking paper.
Yeah. You have to free up that mental capacity. Like sometimes I'm in the middle of something and I just lock the computer down because my brain, I feel it getting full. I feel my senses overwhelmed. And as much as I want to get through that last, line or hit that last button to send or whatever it is, I know that if I step away, I'm going to come back and I might have an idea or something that emerges from me taking that rest that would not have been there before. If I just left it the way it was.
There, especially the idea that you just said you just shut it down in the middle. A lot of our nature is we want to finish this line, we want to finish this paragraph, we want to finish this page. But our brains are powerful computers, and they actually do this really powerful thing if we stop a task in the middle. Like if you just go, look, my brain is full, I just need to take a lap, and you shut it off in the middle. Or if you say, you know what, I've graded what I could grade, or I've designed what I could design, I got to go to bed. The interesting thing is that your subconscious brain will still meditate on that challenge. And that's why when you come back, you feel like you had an idea you never would have had. Because you did have an idea that you never would have had. Your subconscious brain power stuck with the challenge. It's a real thing. So it's all the more why we got to give ourselves the opportunity to rest. we think like if I just perseverate on this a little bit longer, if I marinate on this, I'm gonna figure it out. But oftentimes, actually, it will be better if we allow our subconscious brain to have its turn.
Mm,
That's a part of rest. That's a part of joy. That's a part of ease and introducing those things into our lives.
yeah. Wow. So much good stuff here, Jonathan. I mean, you're taking us back in history, in psychology, so much stuff. But I do want to ask you, um, I know your work, your family, your own personal, familial, ancestral history, those inspire you.
Mhm.
What what is at the forefront when it comes to you prioritizing rest? How do you prioritize your rest, um, especially when things get hectic? I mean, I know in our world, especially during certain times of year, things are crazy, and we know that we don't have that extra hour that we may have had the month before. So what inspires you to continue to prioritize rest in those moments, and what do you do in those moments?
The biggest thing for me is if I'm getting out of whack or out of alignment,
Mm-hmm.
my children will remind me.
Mm,
When I look at my kids, they're right at this moment right now, they're 10, 9, 6, and 5. So they're normally 2 years apart, but we're just starting to have all the birthdays turn. Um, and so I look at them and I realize how young they are and how much older I am than them. I'm gonna be 41 this year. My son is gonna be 11.
mm-hmm.
So the reality is I'm not gonna if things go the way they're supposed to, I'm not gonna make it all the way with them.
Mm,
And I'll be gone for them. If things go the way they're supposed to, by the traditional way, parents go before their kids. And so I am trying to pack in as many as much joy and as much life into the years that I do have with them. And I'm trying to elongate that time as much as I can. So that's the primary motivator. You know, I want that when I'm gone, not that they are devastated without me, but that they are full to the brim with appreciation and joy because of what we were able to do together, what we saw together, what we experienced, what we created. And part of that is them being proud of the impact that I had on the world. And so that's where when I'm getting out of whack, it's usually being around them, something will click and I'm like, yo, you gotta take care of yourself, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
So if I'm getting out of shape, I haven't been working out as much as I need to, or I've been eating on the run or
yeah,
not sleeping right, it'll usually be one of them or all of them to remind me in some way. I'm like, man, you got to take care of yourself. And so when that happens, I kind of do my little self-assessment. I try to look at what's happening. I mean, for a while for me, I wasn't as keeping as diligently with my spiritual practices, right? So I noticed that. I could feel that. And
yeah,
so this year, January 1st, I started a Bible in a year plan. And I'm doing that,
yeah,
and trying to stay up on that. Sometimes I look down, I look at the belly, you know what I mean? It's like, man, I've been eating too much on the run. I've been
yeah,
eating too much on the run. And the options that you get on the run aren't the same as what you should be eating.
yeah.
And so I look at that. Like, so last night we went out for dinner for our anniversary. I made an intentional choice about what I was going to have. And I didn't have dessert. You know what I mean? I had a nice beverage, and it was a mocktail, but it had some fruit juices in it. So that I got my sweetness, but I didn't have the ice cream. I didn't have the pie. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's about getting into the studio and taking on extra classes so that I can get movement in
Yeah,
my martial arts practice, like, you know what I'm saying? Or talking to my wife, about us getting out of the house. But so that's a big thing is the self-assessment. What's missing?
yeah,
And it's like smaller than that in terms of micro level.
yeah.
Am I reading? Have I been reading? Let me pull something out and read something fun. So lately I've been reading or listening to fiction because that's a form of rest for me. It's an escape and it's something,
Yes.
you know. I love to what I love sports and pro wrestling. So something that's a little bit, the testosterone fueled, soap opera of it, the storytelling. It's an escape. Gives me a chance. And then my kids like to watch it with me. So then we wrestle, we get the social time. But again, to the micro, it might be doing, I don't know if folks that are listening will be familiar with like Positive Intelligence by Shirzad Shamin, but he talks about developing our brain's ability to challenge when that negative self-talk arises. So like when we were talking earlier about, oh, you're being lazy. And part of that is he talks about PQ reps. And it's when I start explaining what these are, it'll sound like a lot of the meditation practices that people have, but it might be sitting there either with your eyes closed or on your walk, rubbing your fingertips together slowly and with attention so you feel the ridges, right? Just
Mhm.
bring you back to the present. Or breathing slower and hearing the breath, like actually listening for your breath
Mhm.
as you walk or as you sit. What's the farthest thing that you can hear and identify? What's the closest thing you can identify? If you haven't heard your breath yet, listen to your breath. Like that type of practice I do in my mind. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Or like noticing, like I'm in my office. I share this office with my brother-in-law, looking at something that I look at and I walk by all the time and just looking at details. Look at it with more attention. What color is it?
Hmm.
What texture do you think it is? How do you think it feels? Right? Or taking something in my hand, this pen, close my eyes, feeling it, right? It's like soft. It's got a little bit of grip to it. It's some metal. This top is soft, right? Like just feeling it. What does it sound like? Right? Like doing things like that in the micro moments when I'm just like, well, I just need to slow down. I'm about to go into this meeting and I'm feeling stressed. I'm about to have a parent visit and I didn't get the chance to prepare. I'm a little bit nervous. Like having practices like that. But again, you got to go out and seek these things and learn them. And like you can take classes, but you could also probably join the Restful teacher community. You could probably get a book. Like there's so much out there. Find something,
Yeah.
internalize it, and make it your own, so that when you need it, you're not at a loss,
It's in your
right?
toolbox. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
The time to get these practices is not in the moment when you need it. It's before you need it. So you're equipped, right? Like you have that full toolkit.
Yes, I love that you shared those practical ways, and they're simple, small, tactical things that you could do in the moment. As students are answering a question, you have a pen in your hand, or you have these items on your desk that can help with your sensory rest, right? Um, with your mental rest, finding the things that you like to watch, like you like pro wrestling. I love Housewives, so I'm gonna watch Housewives to give my brain that break. I tell my husband it's like background music. I don't have to think about nothing when I'm sitting there just watching mess.
Right, right. They know you don't have to try to like decipher the plot twist. You could just enjoy.
Right, I'm just there for
Just
the
enjoy.
mess.
Yeah.
So, and I would beat myself up because watching TV is wasting time. Before I realized this is a form of rest that my body needs to recalibrate, to help with
Yeah.
my mental capacity, right? So you really have to know yourself, find those things, find those little itsy bitsy things, those macro things, and integrate them in your schedule so that you can be intentional about doing them
Yep.
every single day, several times a day, and be consistent. Be
Yes.
consistent. That's the key, being consistent.
And the thing I think that comes from it is that when you're tending to yourself in all those ways, when you have a full practice, excuse me, that, maybe it's housewives, maybe it's whatever. But I think that like I have found that when I'm staying, diligent about my practices, I get rewarded. Like when you said earlier, you'll shut something down and you give yourself a break.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, my wife likes to watch some of those shows too. She's like Love is Blind
Oh
and
yeah.
all the, Bachelor in Paradise. And I'd be like, oh, these are so dumb. And then of course I'm right next to her, like, once it's on, it's like I just can't help it. But sometimes that quote unquote mindless entertainment or just listening to music, chilling, that's the time your brain is, and then that's when you get that divine
Yes.
inspiration. So you
Yes.
get rewarded when you are taking care of it. Like we only come this way once. You got one body. And again, I believe that it's given to us. I don't believe that we're here by accident. I believe we're here by design. I believe that creation is screaming out to us with the evidence that for every creation, there's a creator. Like your tree didn't get there in your yard by accident. You planted it, right? And so then the things that we didn't actively create, they're here for a reason, right? So we're designed in such a way when we tend to this gift,
Yeah.
our body and our life gifts, right? To be a teacher is a gift. Not everybody could be a teacher, at least not a good one.
I
So
agree.
that's a gift. You have a gift. It's a communication gift. It's a connection gift. There's a social gift. There's whatever, a creative, whatever it is, you have these gifts. When you tend to them, that you get rewarded, right? Creation, God rewards you. When you're taking care of yourself, that answer you're looking for, it will reveal itself, right? Like I always, when I'm stuck on something, I have to remind myself to slow down.
Yeah.
If my brain will tell me, like the negative part of me, the judge will say, just keep working. Don't be lazy. Get that answer. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
But the wisdom, the sage reminds you, got to slow down. You've done just about everything you can do. Now you got to leave
Yep.
room for God.
Yep.
You got to allow room for the blessing part to come.
Yep.
You got into the edge of your abilities. You got to leave room for the blessing part, and that's where rest comes in. Don't just sit there doing nothing. Put that beach sound on. Sit
Mm-hmm.
out by the trees that take you to Jamaica, that transport you. Cook that meal. Do something that is restorative, and then allow those blessings to come forth. I just think it's really, really important. Even like I say, again, I know that not everybody shares my same spiritual beliefs, but that grounding, it transcends. I did a spiritual learning journey with other adults. A friend of mine, Dr. Tony Clemmer, facilitated it. And we went through and we saw through Judaism, Christianity, but from multiple lenses: a Hispanic lens, the
Okay.
feminist lens, an African American lens, Islam, indigenous African religious or spiritual practices, traditional North American indigenous spiritual and religious practices, Hindi, Buddha, all these, it was like all kinds of spiritual and including secular humanism. So for those that might be like, well, this guy's talking about religion, I'm not religious, I don't believe. What we learned in this journey was there's so much more that we agree on
Mm-hmm.
and that we disagree on
Mm.
when it comes to what makes a full life, right? Kindness, compassion, courage, all these, they are like universal. They are universal. And so to be that person, to be that educator that shows up powerfully, and has an impact on kids that will resonate and reverberate through their life, you got
Mm.
to be taking care of yourself. You have to. You
Yeah.
have to. No matter what spiritual path you're on or not on, if you're going to fulfill your calling as a teacher to tend to the most important resource that any nation has, which is their kids, which is their future leaders, you can't do it depleted. You can't do it with a half cup. You can't do it with an empty cup with the residue. You know what I mean? You remember when you were kids and you would drink milk and then you would put water in the cup? It didn't taste the same. It doesn't taste the same. That milk is milk water. It is
Put it
bland.
down.
It is watered down. You can't show up in that watered down milk version and think your lesson is gonna be hidden, that your message is gonna be getting through.
Your energy, the energy that you give off, that the kids can feel, that's gonna be off.
It's gonna be off.
My
And you're
goodness.
gonna be short tempered. You're gonna be ornery, and you're not gonna show up for them the way they need you to. But most importantly, not that the kids are not important, but let's be real. For self, you're not gonna show up the way you want to.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Oh, all right. So one last question, Mr. Jonathan. If you could give one single piece of advice, maybe it's somebody catching the end of this interview, one piece of advice to teachers about cultivating joy through rest, what would it be?
I mean, I think when I think of that word joy, it's like one of my favorite words. Joy is not like I got a new car or I got a new this or when something temporal that fades or it can be replaced. Joy is about cultivating an ever-present feeling of I'm good, I'm whole, I'm content. It doesn't mean that you don't strive. It doesn't mean that you don't still have goals, but like being pleased to be who you are and what you were made to be. And so I think it's like essential practice to tend to that, right? How do you create this resilience within you, or how do you stimulate and cultivate that resilience that you already have, especially if we're talking about black and brown folks who have descended from resilient people, like it's already within us. But how do we tend to that in a daily world that is beating us down? And I'm
Mm.
not even trying to get on a deep level of like racism and sexism stuff, but even just like work culture is not in our schools is not always healthy. It's just the world is the way that it works in this capitalistic society is it beats you down. So you have to tend to it. And so I think the advice I give is it's about loving yourself radically and boldly enough to say that I deserve to have joy. I deserve to experience this, right? I mean, if you think about the person or the people that you love most, I mean, for me, it's like my wife and my kids.
Yeah.
And if my kids came to me and I looked at them and they looked tired and they looked worn out, what would I tell them? What would I would not, I would do anything and everything I could to try to guide them and advise them and to get that rest, to eat well, to be healthy, to be good. So why not myself?
Mm.
If you would do it for the other person that you imagined when I said that, or the other people that you love the most and you care about, why wouldn't you do it for yourself? You know, many of us, honestly, when we really think about it, we know what we're supposed to do. We know how we're supposed to eat. We know how we're supposed to sleep. We know how we're supposed to be active. We know that we need to tend to the social battery from time to time, whether that is as an extrovert, getting socialization, or as an introvert, having quiet time to reduce.
Yes.
But we know what we need. Most of the stuff is not news to us. And the reality is, if it was someone different outside of ourselves that we would stand next to and be like, girl, you are working yourself ragged. You need to tend to yourself, girl. I love you too much to let you be out here depleted. You need to take some. We would do it for her, or
Mm-hmm.
we would do it for him. But then for us, well, I just got to get more done. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, summer break is coming, April
Mm-hmm.
break is coming, Christmas break is coming. No, you would not. You would get in front of your loved one and be like, no, I'm not going to allow you to deplete yourself. You got to take care. You got to do that for yourself. That's the number one thing. Because I go back to the analogy of the airplane. What does the stewardess or the flight attendant say in the event of a loss of cabin pressure? Oxygen masks will come down. Please secure your mask before helping anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it is your children, your partner, your parents, your community, your classroom full of beautiful, bright-eyed kids, it is not a selfish act to tend to your joy. It's a self-preservation act. It's a life skill and commitment that you have to make. And in so doing, it's not about taking away from all those people we just talked about. It's about giving them the best of you.
Mm.
So that would be what I would say is make the commitment. Make the commitment. Like I said, you already know what you ought to be doing. So make the commitment to do it, to be about it, to stand on business when it comes to you. And if you do that, I'm telling you, I promise you, it will reward you. Those
Yep.
practices will reward you. You'll be a better teacher. You'll be a better husband or wife, a better parent, a better community member. All that. Like I'll tell you, last thing, there's been ample interviews conducted with, ample books written on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, elders when they get to the end of their life.
Mm.
And they ask them about what's important. And I think have yet to hear of an elder who said, I just wish I would have graded more papers. I wish I would have stayed up later, doing more planning. I wish I would have burnt the candle at both ends a little bit more. It's never that. It's about showing up for the ones they love, being
Right.
present. And you can do that so much better when you have first shown up for yourself.
Oh, yes. Putting yourself at the forefront, and it is okay to do that. It is not selfish. And like you said, it's self-preservation. Love that. So, Jonathan, I want to thank you for this incredible conversation. All the knowledge that you've shared with the community about joy and rest and history and everything. This really was. I learned I learned a lot from you today, and I'm going to check that book out. You said it's called Positive Intelligence. I'm going to check
Yes.
this book out for sure. So we want to thank Jonathan again for being part of the Restful Teacher Challenge. If you need resources for rest, there's the Restful Teacher framework for you to identify the areas that you need rest the most. There's an assessment where you can take the assessment to see what your most needed rest areas are. Like for me, it's sensory rest. I never knew that my entire life until taking that assessment, but I knew that I felt overwhelmed with loud noises and bright lights, and I just couldn't be in those environments all the time for a long period of time. Like my body was telling me something was wrong, but I just wasn't listening to my body. And part of this, I will say, journey to embrace rest is knowing yourself, like you said, Jonathan, loving yourself, but also listening to your body. Listening
Mhm.
to your body when your body tells you you need to stop
Yep.
and not put it off for another 5 minutes. Stop right then and there.
Yep.
And so in this community, we want to help you to do that by giving you tips and tools and restful strategies that you can implement in your day. And that's what this challenge is about as well. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to
Thank you.
Jonathan again. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for participating in the Restful Teacher Challenge. I hope you found our guest speakers' insights inspiring and practical. Take the time to plan and implement your joyful rest daily, and tell us about it in the community.